Gypsy absolutely manipulated Ken through the prison confessions on Lifetime into reaching back out to her and starting up a new relationship. She claims that Ken was the one who chased her and came back to her, but we know from watching the prison confessions that Gypsy made it very clear that she was still resentful over this relationship, that she thought that the reason why him and her had broken up was because he couldn't handle the public attention. This was her telling him that she wanted him to reach back out, or trying to manipulate him into doing so. Everything she does is very calculated so that she can achieve the goal that she is trying to achieve.
How did you enter back into the picture when Gypsy got out of prison? Did you watch our episode with Gypsy when you got brought up? Were you kind of out there kind of feeling a certain way? And then what prompted you to reach back out and start this beautiful relationship back up?
Well, I think at first I had seen her Lifetime doc, Prison Confessions, where she talked about me like towards the end, and like displayed some feelings about our separation, and talked about how it ended, and it wasn't fully accurate. So like it kind of broke my heart to see her cry and see her have this description of how our relationship ended. It made me just want to like set the record straight and like let her know like what the real reasons were at the time. I mean, this is going back 5 years ago. And so that kind of like prompted me to reach out. But it was more just like, hey, I'm happy to see you out. I'm happy to see you smiling. I'm happy to see you thriving. I wish you the best. And that was like the initial point of contact.
Always had a difficulty letting go of my ex-fiance, Ken. We're so connected at one time that I felt like he was a soulmate. And I think it started to wear on Ken, the amount of time that I had to do in prison and the stress of who I am as Gypsy Blanchard. I don't think that he knew how to deal with the popularity and the quote-unquote fame of that. So 3 years ago, he ended the relationship. It was devastating to me.
And Gypsy also uses this manipulation where she pits men against one another so that they fear losing her, and she is able to manipulate them into doing what she wants them to do. You've seen her do this with Nicholas and Dan, saying that she wanted to have sex with Dan before Nicholas got down there to actually do the crime. You see her doing this throughout the entire docuseries by making Ryan jealous of Ken, even going as far to say that she had a dream about Ken and that she left Ryan for Ken. This was her setting up the stage, telling Ryan what she was going to do in advance, and he just didn't listen to her.
And be upfront with you, because I had a dream about my ex, and in that dream I left you for my ex.
I don't know what to say.
And Gypsy Rose Blanchard is very skilled at manipulating the men that she chooses into doing things that she wants or needs them to do. Gypsy uses sympathy and romantic love to lure men into her life to rescue her from the lies that she has told them about her life. These men are not valued by Gypsy unless they're able to follow through with the plans that Gypsy has set forth. Then once she is done with them, she discards them like yesterday's trash. We see this as a pattern with her in all of her relationships thus far. With Nicholas, she used him to complete the unaliving of her mother. She managed to convince and manipulate this man for over 2.5 years that she needed him to unalive her mother, otherwise they could not be together. She had him so wrapped up in her lies that he thought that he was rescuing her from a bad situation, and that she had tried to run away multiple times before and was unsuccessful. She convinced him that running away was not an option, Matter of fact, he said that he tried to get her to run away several times, and every single time he asked her to run away, she refused, saying, "No, if my mom is alive, we're not going to be able to be together. The only way we're going to be able to be together is if my mother is gone."
The darker part of me was also in love with the darker part of her because I wanted to be with her, and I remember what she said, and I wanted to believe what she was saying, and unfortunately, I should have listened to my other part of me. Ironic because I was trying to influence her to go with, but she never went with it. She never wanted to run away, so I couldn't get that to work.
Gypsy also manipulated Ryan into marrying her so that Gypsy would be able to appear more responsible to the parole board to essentially gain parole and have a residence to parole to. Even though Ryan refuses to believe that this is the reason, Gypsy has gone on publicly to say several times that everything she did while she was in prison up until the day that she got paroled was to gain parole. She also admitted in the docuseries that she would not be able to parole to a boyfriend. She had to parole to a family member.
What about Ryan made him the one? What's different about Ryan?
Well, Ryan's from Louisiana, and I mean, there's one of a kind. But he's from Louisiana, and I'm originally from Louisiana. So I saw that, and I'm kind of like, hey, you know, someone from my home state, we probably have a lot in common. So I wrote him a letter back, and we became friends, and then, of course, more than friends, and then now we're married.
In the life after lockup, love after lockup, whatever it is, she tried to manipulate her dad and Christy into believing that she did not think that they would want her there, and that's the reason why she was so pressed to go ahead and get married to Ryan. But we know that Gypsy does not like Christy. Even though she's putting on this act that she does, Gypsy holds a lot of resentment towards Christy and Mia and her dad. Even though she tries to portray that she does not, she does. And now Gypsy has manipulated Ken into getting her pregnant and having a child with her. People with narcissistic personality disorder, specifically malignant narcissists, do not view people as human beings. They are simply objects to be used for whatever purposes they need, and then they are discarded. And when you listen closely to the narcissist, they are telling you what they think and what their plans are. You just have to listen to what they're actually saying. Gypsy did not love Nicholas. Gypsy did not love Ryan. And Gypsy does not love Ken now. They are all being used and have been used to further Gypsy's own desires and her own public image. Gypsy enjoys the chase of getting these people to do what she wants them to do. And then once she gets it, she's bored and ready to move on to the next victim. Narcissists always have a backup supply. Narcissists like Gypsy are constantly looking to be validated, admired, praised. This is why she enjoys social media so much, because the clicks, the likes, and the views. That is why Gypsy likes the clicks, the likes, and the views, because it gives her the self-importance that she feels about herself, and it enhances that ego. Malignant narcissists like Gypsy are highly manipulative, and they don't care who they hurt as long as they are getting their own way. And we have seen that as soon as her and Nicholas got arrested, what did she do? She threw Nicholas under the bus and was like, okay, I don't care about you anymore. It's all about self-preservation. And preserving herself is exactly what she did. She didn't care what the story was, as long as it meant that she didn't have to spend the rest of her life in prison. And now, victimizing her poor mother, making her mother out to be a terrible human being in order for Gypsy to get her own way. She had absolutely no remorse for hurting Nicholas and absolutely no remorse for hurting her mother and tainting her mother's image. Gypsy also has a really bad problem of blaming other people for her own bad behavior. And I'm sure you've already noticed this as a pattern. Blaming her poor mother for her own death. Like, who does that? Gypsy has gone on to villainize her own mother, stating that it's her mother's fault that she is not here. Yet when you look at pictures of Gypsy whenever she was a child, there are no photos of her where Gypsy looks unhappy. None. She looks like a very well-adjusted child who is getting everything that she needs from a caring, loving parent. Getting pregnant with a narcissist is one of the most painful and isolating experiences that one can go through. Why? Because you are isolated and sometimes without your own support system. As we have already seen, because Gypsy is unable to move out of the state of Louisiana, Ken had to leave his family in Texas to move closer to be with Gypsy and this baby, which has completely isolated him from his family and his support system. So now all he has is the narcissist Gypsy and their support.
It was like, okay, well, it's time to buckle down now and get prepared to, or start to prepare to be a father. So at the time I was living in Dallas, I was living in a house. I had a full-time job that I had been at for over 2 years. And I realized that, well, it's time to move. I need to be in Louisiana to be as close to her as possible, to get her, so we can be together to get through this process. I don't want to just leave her alone to handle a first-time pregnancy. I left my job. I had to break my lease, and I packed all my stuff, and I moved to New Orleans to start a new life here. And I've been happy ever since. I mean, the parole is a little bit tricky,
Which we all know everyone in Gypsy's family is not a support system. They are her enablers. They allow her to mistreat others and be mistreated by her in order to protect her public image. There is no way to know what goes on behind closed doors with Gypsy and Ken. However, the little that they have shared publicly shows that both Gypsy and Ken are over one another. Their body language is saying everything. So as I stated previously, narcissists will use people to get what they want out of them, and that's exactly what Gypsy has done with Ken. She wanted a pregnancy, and while her and Ryan were trying, she wanted the public to see that she took that Plan B pill whenever she was hanging out with her sister Mia. And that was done more as a way to appease her sister than it was as an act of something that she wanted to do herself.
There's never going to be a perfect timing, but there is wrong timing.
Yeah, and I think right now it's wrong timing.
All of these men in Gypsy's life were seen as a tool in order for her to get what she wanted, and that was to become pregnant. There are no gender roles when it comes to discussing malignant narcissists or narcissistic personality disorders in general. Narcissists can be both men and they can be women. The number one goal of a woman wanting to have a child is to gain a permanent source of narcissistic supply. With men, you cannot guarantee that they're going to stick around, but when you have your own child as a narcissist, that's like hitting the jackpot, because they're always going to be there to love, admire you, look up to you, and believe everything you say, and just cherish the ground that you walk on, because children look at their parents like they are heroes. Gypsy views this child as a way to manipulate whatever man into being in her life for as long as this child is alive. It is a constant source of narcissistic supply. And Gypsy will use this child to control and manipulate the father, whether it be Ken or Ryan. She is going to use this child to manipulate them into getting whatever it is that she wants. This child is not going to be viewed as a child. This child is already being used as a tool to manipulate people around her. I talked about this in another video that I did yesterday, but I'm going to go over it a little bit more in this video. This child is a way for Gypsy to control the choices that are made in regards to this child as it refers to the father of the child, whether it be Ken or Ryan. And we've already seen that Ken moved across state lines to be closer to Gypsy and this baby. Narcissistic people want to trap their partner into a constant supply. And what is the best way to do that? It's to have a baby with you. Whether they want that baby or not, they want you as a constant source of supply, of adoration, validation, all of those things. So a baby gives them access to you and access to the child to receive that validation that they are craving. And we already know how much Gypsy loves to be the center of attention. So she feels like this baby is going to give her the attention that she craves online. But it's already backfired a little bit, which is good. While Gypsy pretends that she wants the same things that Ken wants, her intentions are malicious. The idea of pregnancy has come about in every single romantic relationship that Gypsy has been in. Whether or not all of this men have taken notice of her deep desire to get pregnant remains to be known. But I think it serves as a huge red flag for all of the men in her life that her desire to become pregnant is above any healthy form of relationship with herself and others. It's like she thinks that having this child is going to somehow solve all of her problems, make her feel better about herself, or give her this sense of self-importance that she doesn't already have right now. As if the constant media attention, the 10 million followers on TikTok, and being invited to be on national television TV shows is not enough. She wants to bring a child into this world as well. But once the narcissist Gypsy has gotten what she wants, which is Ken getting her pregnant, she will then start treating him like crap because she no longer needs him. She already got what she wanted. Unless she sees Ken as serving another source of supply for her, whether it is creating more children or, trying to create this perfect family unit perception to the public. So now that she's gotten what she wants from Ken, the devaluation stage either begins or it becomes worse. So if she was not already devaluing him, criticizing him, making him feel worthless, it's going to start now, or it's gotten worse now that she's become pregnant. We would all like to assume that Gypsy is not going to abuse this child or treat this child any differently, but the fact is, with narcissistic mothers, that could not be further from the truth. The child is now a display of some sort of a trophy, so she can brag about, but she's not going to have any real connection with this child. She will bring the child out for public appearances, photo ops, videos, but behind closed doors, this child is not going to get any of Gypsy's attention unless it serves a purpose for her. And Gypsy will try to ruin any type of relationship that the father, whether it's Ken or Ryan, will have with this baby, especially if Ken decides not to stay with her. She has already prepared the public to spin the narrative that she's the victim and that Ken is going to leave her somehow. In the Vile Files podcast, she was saying, oh, well, I'm not the type of person that's going to make him stay with me just because of a baby. She's preparing the public that if Ken leaves her, it's not because of anything she did. It's because he didn't want to have anything to do with this child. But the reality is, regardless if Ken or Ryan is in a relationship with Gypsy, she's going to make it hard for them to emotionally connect with that child because it's going to cause incredible amounts of jealousy and insecurity for Gypsy, because the attention is no longer going to be on her. It's going to be on this precious child, which the child deserves all of the attention because they are growing and they need as much love and emotional stability as possible. Not to mention that they need actual stability in their home life. And with them not being able to live together, the instability is already set in stone, which is why so many people are concerned, because Gypsy doesn't seem to even care or realize that the instability of going back and forth at such a young age for this child can create trauma already in this baby. In a nutshell, having this child is not about securing a family connection. It is more about securing a permanent source of supply for her and for her child. In a sense, continuing on the generational trauma that her mother had already continued. Gypsy is trying to weaponize the use of this pregnancy to display to the world that she has somehow matured, grown, overcome trauma. But the fact that Gypsy sees this child as some sort of an accomplishment or goal to reach before even learning how to live in society speaks volumes about how desperately she wants the world to perceive her in a positive way and to gain notoriety and constant attention through the use of this baby. Gypsy has claimed that she does not want to put her baby on social media. However, Gypsy has a twisted desire to always be validated, and she gets her validation through clicks, views, likes, comments from social media and the public. You hear her complaining that when her life is boring, that means she's not getting enough attention. She's not getting enough validation from the public. So what does she do? She goes live so that she can get that validation and attention from the public that she so desperately wants. And that's because her supply, Ken, is no longer validating her or giving her the adoration that he once was in the beginning of their relationship. The mask starts to fall off after a certain period of time. You can only hide behind that mask for so long before the true you comes out. There have been rumors about Gypsy reaching back out to Ryan, and that's because she's no longer getting what she needs from Ken, so she's searching for it somewhere else. And narcissists love to keep a backup supply on hand just in case they need to go back to it. This does not mean that she loves Ryan. This just means that she wants to use him just in case Ken leaves. She will have somebody to be dependent on. Gypsy wants to display this outward perception that her life is perfect, everything's going good, and nothing is wrong, and there's no reason for anyone to be concerned about what's going on in her life. She also wants to display this image that she's doing age-appropriate things to the public. Like she mentioned in the interview with Nick Vile that, Ryan was 37 and she was 32, so they didn't want to wait too long to have a baby. There is no room for two people's realities in a narcissistic relationship. So this relationship between Gypsy and Ken will only work if Gypsy is able to dominate and control the relationship and the narrative about the relationship. But once Ken challenges that narrative, they will either blow up, or he is going to leave, or she is going to tell him to leave, which I'm guessing is probably what Ken would like at this point. The danger is going to come when Gypsy no longer feels the attention because the child is taking that attention away from her. This is going to happen immediately. Okay, this was probably one of the longest videos that I did, and I didn't really add a lot of clips to it, so I'm sorry about that. If you are liking learning about narcissistic personality disorder and the effects that it has on our relationships, make sure to hit that follow button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you always get notified when I upload something new. Make sure to comment and don't forget to share. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.